For more than a century, the Catholic Church financed its expansion and its institutions with profits made from the purchase and sale of people they enslaved. This chapter of church history has only recently come to the attention of the public. Without the enslaved, the Catholic Church in the United States as we know it today would not exist, writes author Rachel Swarns. She says the priests prayed for the salvation of the souls of the people they owned, even as they bought and sold their bodies. In 1838, the Jesuits sold 272 enslaved people, which helped save what is now Georgetown University from bankruptcy, and helped stabilize the Jesuits in Marilyn Swarns' book. The 272, The Families Who Were Enslaved and Sold to Build the American Catholic Church, expands on that article. It tells the story of the Church's history of enslavement in America, while illustrating the consequences by focusing on generations of one family that had several members among those 272 people sold by the Church in 1838. To this day, our contemporary institutions are deeply connected to slavery, Swarns says. She hopes that telling multi-generational stories of families associated with these institutions will help make this history more present and more personal. This isn't this faceless, amorphous thing, Swarns says. These are people. They have names. And we are connected to that. We are connected to that history today. If you had been there on a wharf that day, you would have seen scores of people being loaded onto a ship, forcibly loaded. There were elderly people, husbands and wives, children, babies wailing. These were enslaved people who had been sold and were being shipped down south, far from the people they loved and the world that they knew. They had been owned and enslaved and sold by the nation's most prominent Catholic priests who happened to be among the largest slaveholders in Maryland. And when times got hard, they did what people at the time did, which was to sell their assets. In this case, 272 men, women, and children, which they sold to save the college that we now know as Georgetown University. On the contradictory relationship between the Jesuit priests and the enslaved people working on the Maryland plantations that sustained those priests, they were interested in nurturing the souls of the people that they held captive, but they were also fine with enslaving them and selling their bodies when need be. It was a contradiction that people pointed out. There are these lonely voices along the way. But it wasn't enough to persuade the priests or the church to take a different path.